This is Bluebird Plays, back with The 13th Year by Tall Tales Games. This is Chapter 3. I forgot the name of it. I kind of went ahead a teeny bit. Anyway, let us continue. The raindrops that had been steadily drumming on my roof ever since this early morning had all but faded in my perception, when suddenly the loud steam whistle I had installed outside made me aware that there was a world beyond my laboratory, a world that contained more than just me and my research. In the case of the steam whistle, it meant that someone was trespassing on my territory, and that it was someone larger than a fox or a rabbit. The light sensors I had installed were not without error, but they usually didn't activate the alarm until they were crossed more than 3 times in short intervals. They had reliably announced my last 5 visitors to me, and as I didn't have many, that was quite an achievement. Putting on my trusty powered vest and grabbing my electrifiable umbrella from next to the door, I left the safety of my laboratory to see who it was this time. A man couldn't be careful enough these days. The visibility in this rain would have been poor for any other man but me. For any other man than me, but my spectacles, one of my finest inventions, easily improved my vision to the point where it could penetrate even the thickest mist. These few drops of water could hardly hamper my view, and so it didn't take long until I spied what had triggered the steam whistle. It's that hooded figure again. To my surprise, it was a young child wearing a gray hooded cloak that was completely, utterly soaked. The poor thing shivered from the cold, and I immediately felt pity for that miserable creature, so thin and unprotected in such nasty autumn weather. Aw, you poor little thing, all wet and freezing, I'm sure. Do you want to warm yourself a little? A room for the night would be nice indeed. I don't think I can make it to the next town today, but I can pay you. Oh, come on. I cannot accept money from people in need. Come on in. It's nice and dry inside. I turned to lead the way, but the child didn't move and stared at my powered vest with a confused look. Come on, dear. What's that you're wearing? It has buttons and levers all over it. Oh, just a very special piece of clothing I designed myself. And that thing that suddenly jumped out of the ground and whistled at me? That was quite scary. Are there more things like that inside? Of course not. That's only for telling me that guests are coming. I turned it off already. You're an inventor, right? I've heard of people like you. It's not that this child was entirely wrong, but I still felt the need to correct that statement, at least a little. I prefer the term scientist, little one, not just inventor. I am Stanislavs Kopersky, Dr. Stanislavs Kopersky, and you may call me Doctor. I'm sorry, Doctor. I didn't know that. Of course you didn't know that, and that is why you needn't apologize, of course. And now come on, there's no need for you to catch a cold in this dastardly weather. I took my young guest under my umbrella, which wasn't only electrifiable, but also did its main purpose quite well, and we both returned into my laboratory. I was a little out of breath when we reached the entrance, and I moved one of the buttons on my vest, making the door swing open. The child looked around my laboratory with big eyes, lost in fascination as many children are when they first see the splendor of my contraptions. The main attraction, of course, was the huge steam omnifactor in the middle of the room, with all of its cogs, wheels, levers, and its constant hissing and thumping. I suppose it looks rather imposing to the uneducated eye. Really, if you look at it, it looks like a stoplight monster right now. Ooh. What you see here is a true triumph of the mind, the pinnacle of modern science, my finest piece of work. It's some kind of steam engine, right? I think I once saw something similar. Something similar maybe, but nothing comparable. This is the world's most elaborate steam engine, the Omnifactor, and I built it myself in the course of over 20 years. It's so shiny! What does it do? Well, it does everything. Chemistry, physics, construction, astronomy, mathematics. All sciences in the world are united in this machine. The child seemed to be genuinely impressed, and I felt the need to add to that awe a little more. And just between the two of us, it can produce a really nice cup of tea. Do we have guests? That was when my daughter decided to join us. As usual, I hadn't heard her coming in through the hatch over the noises of the Omnifactor. She mostly kept to herself, and as much as it pained me to admit that, she didn't care much about her appearance unless I mentioned it to her. Again, her hair was unkempt and greasy, and judging from her gray face, she had been sleeping until now. Her mood wasn't much better than her appearance, too. Who's that? I'm Estelle. Sorry, I didn't hear you come in. You're wet. Oh, yes, of course. What is it with me today? I'll get you a warm blanket at once. You can take off your wet clothes in the meantime, Estelle. When I spoke that name, Estelle, I wondered how easily it came over my tongue, as though I had heard it before. For a moment, my thoughts lingered around that question, but then I quickly shook my head and went to get a blanket. As I searched the lockers, I could hear Estelle undressing, could hear that wet cloak slide to the ground with a squishing sound. A definite sigh of relief followed it. Apparently, most other people hated being wet just as much as I did. You're really thin. I'm on a pilgrimage. What's your name? Her name's Anna. She's my daughter, 15 years old. 16. Oh, yes, of course, 16. What is it with me today? Ah! That's when I found the blue fluffy blanket I had been looking for. It probably had been in that locker for at least a decade, but it looked reasonably clean to me. Here, you can dry yourself off with this. Thank you. By the way, Anna, I'm 12. Anna's eyes opened in surprise, and she climbed out the hatch a little further, crossing her arms and resting her elbows on the ground. Her bandages looked like they needed changing soon. And already on a pilgrimage? Are you on your way to a Vietnamese? No, I've been there just a few. Oh, but you're hurt. Immediately, Anna hid her arms again. That was a sensitive point for her. Estelle couldn't have known that, of course, but mentioning her wounds made my daughter defensive. None of your business. Anna ducked back into the cellar and slammed the hatch shut behind her. This conversation was definitely over. Yes, I had seen that coming. Now, Estelle looked a little guilty for having scared Anna away, and I really needed to make it clear that it wasn't as bad as it looked. Searching for words, I picked up the wet cloak. Well, I think I should have given you a little warning. Anna has, how shall I put it? She's had a condition for quite a long time now, and there are people who misinterpret that condition. Yes, misinterpret. I think that's the right word. Is that why she's living in the cellar? It's better this way. What about the rest of your clothes? Estelle handed me a pantyhose that was just as dripping wet as the cloak had been. I took it, opened the hatch in the Omnifactor, and tossed both pieces of cloth inside. When I closed the hatch, I could hear the familiar sharp hiss that signaled the machine had started to work, and a small steam cloud rose from it. Well, don't you want to sit down? Where? There are no... I smiled and turned one of the regulators on the Omnifactor. Immediately, a few gears clicked into motion under the floor, and in the middle of the room, my table rose up, together with a small arrangement of stools. Another adjustment of the regulator, and all stools except for 2 returned into the floor. Estelle gazed at everything with astonishment. There's nothing your machine can't do, is there, Doctor? There is but little, and I'm still working on that little. But please, take a seat. Dinner must be ready quite soon. Estelle nodded and went over to the table, struggling a little to get on the stools, which may have been a little high for such a young child. I sat back down as well, sighing as I rested my heavy body. Strangely, that sigh seemed to suddenly attract Estelle's attention, and I could feel the child's eyes suddenly upon me. They were weird eyes, lying strangely deep in that young face, and the way they looked at me seemed to imply that something was wrong somehow. What's that condition your daughter has, Doctor? The question came so suddenly that I almost flinched in surprise, but I already knew what to answer. You wouldn't understand. Why do you think that? So we have choices. As I mentioned before, when I do my choices, I'm going to go with the bluebird choice, which is what I think the doctor in this case would say, having met Estelle only a few moments before. So, for me, Estelle doesn't look like a religious person. I just think she's too young. So, the problem is that Estelle is too young. I'm sorry, but that's a little too complex for a child of 12 years to understand. Why do you think that? Because it's complex science. It cannot be explained in easy terms a child would understand. It cannot? That seemed to greatly confuse Estelle. Why the surprised face? There's something I don't understand. And that is? You said that Anna's had that condition for quite a long time now. That's right. So she got that condition when she was still a child, right? Right. Then how did you explain that condition to her back then? Or did you tell her that this was something she couldn't possibly understand, just as you told me? Because if you did, I think that would have been a very cruel thing to say. Yep. I opened and shut my mouth. I must have looked like a fish on dry land at that minute, and maybe I would have stuttered out some answer, had not the Omnifactor saved me that very moment by putting a large bowl of soup on the table and one small bowl before me and Estelle. First we eat, then we continue talking. Of course, we did not continue talking after dinner, for in the meantime the Omnifactor had dried and ironed Estelle's clothes, and while that child was dressing, I had the table and stools retract into the floor and replaced it with my science desk, the one where I kept my microscope, test tubes, and many other instruments. So, as Estelle approached me again, I had a good excuse not to continue our conversation. Doctor? Not now. I need to continue my research. May I see Anna? May I see Anna? If she wants to see you, I have no objections. You know where the hatch is. Just stub your foot against it and it will open. Thank you. But don't come too close to her. Phages are infectious, and I don't want you to get her condition as well. If it has anything to do with the phages, after all... I don't know what phages are. I can't comment on this. I chose to overhear that over the noise of the Omnifactor and turned to my work. I was just... Okay, this is Anna. Okay. I was just cutting open the bandages around my left wrist when I heard the hatch When I heard the hatch above open and close. I had to be that child from earlier. Father never came down here. He preferred to be around his machines. Not that I really gave a damn. I was happier with myself anyway. It made many things easier if you didn't have to deal with other people. Go away. I'm changing my bandages. I wanted to apologize for earlier. I didn't know you were sick. I'm sorry if I hurt you. Go away. You're going to get infected. I don't think I will, and I'm not scared. You're only a child. What would you know about infectious diseases? Nothing. And that means I don't need to have an opinion on those wounds you're bandaging. May I see them? Why? I've never heard about a condition that gives people open wounds before, and you're changing the bandages anyway. Oh, bother. Then go have a look. I extended both of my arms towards Estelle and showed her the wounds on my wrists. They were rather large at this point, though they had started smaller. They were circular in shape, bright red, and rather clean, and they were both on the upper and lower sides of my wrist. Estelle came a little closer and looked at them, seeming quite interested in them. Do they hurt a lot? They always hurt, but you get used to the pain. Are you finished staring now? Since when have you had them? Since I was 12, your age. I wish you had them, then you wouldn't know how much I suffer. Oh, then you would know how much I suffer. Estelle looked at me with those weird, deep, shadowy eyes, and strangely, I thought I saw a little shimmer in them. Maybe a reflection from the gaslights? But it was gone already, and Estelle moved away a little. Thank you. Thank you? For what? For showing them to me. I think I understand now. Understand what? What's going on between you and your father? Those words made me very angry. What did this little kid think? You don't understand nothing. Nothing at all. You don't know either of us. I never said I understood you or your father. I only said that I understood what's going on between the two of you. And that you understand it. Is that supposed to make me feel better? No. I'm sorry I started with this. I shouldn't have. I'll leave you alone if you want to. Well, then good riddance. And then Estelle was gone, and I was alone with myself and my pain again. It wasn't long after Estelle went to see my daughter when the hatch into the cellar opened again. I could see immediately that the conversation hadn't gone too well. I hope the visit wasn't too unpleasant. No, not really. It was pretty much what I expected. Expected? I raised an eyebrow at that strange statement, waiting to see what explanation would follow it, but there was none. Please, take good care of your daughter, Doctor. Her condition is every bit as tough for her as it is for you. For me? I don't quite understand. And maybe you should talk to Anna more often. Why, you... I'm sorry. I didn't mean this like it probably sounded to you. I'm just saying, take good care of your daughter. I think I am. Yes, you think you are. And with that, Estelle went to the door and left, back into the pouring rain. Alright, so that was chapter 3. Now this is chapter 4, A Quiet Dinner. I will go ahead and stop here, and we will continue on in the next couple days or so. Thank you all, and see you on the flip side.